Okay, so this is me again, David Lightfoot, writer of the Glory of Love saga, I should say. And this is my second reading for my second novel, Lovers in a Dangerous Time. And this is actually part of the pro football subplot that is in my novel. And this is actually the scene where Shaylene, the Juliet character, comes face to face with Neil and Scott Jameston as they just begin their careers, and in the case of Scott Goldsmith, his second season with the Warriors. Okay, so here's the reading. Oh, and this is actually what's happening here is this is actually a live interview at a sports bar. So just to give you a heads up. Okay, so anyway, to the reading. When they arrive at the tribal fire, Greg and Shaylene see that the bar floor is still damaged. The water has been cleaned up and the tables and chairs have been arranged properly, but the floors need to be replaced, and the windows still have covered up holes in them. The Jameston interview is in the lounge upstairs. They see almost every table occupied, but see 2 seats available at the front. At the round interview table is a bald man with an athletic figure wearing a white polo with green stripes. Looking over his notes, Greg points him out as Jason Warrington. Seconds later, a tall, Latin-looking man in a purple button-down with a thin mustache sits down next to him. Shaylene guesses it's Brad Santana, but she's not interested in their pro sports careers. She sees nearly everyone has a drink in front of them, eating desserts and sharing chicken wings. 5 minutes before the interview, she sees Neil and Scott Jameston come in. She immediately distracts herself with a dessert menu so Neil doesn't notice her. Shaylene, this thing with the Jamestons is going to be big news in Crystal Isle, Greg reminds her. You really should pay attention. And have Neil ask me out prematurely, she replies. No, thank you, Greg. Greg notices the cousins are already sitting at the round table. Well, Neil and Scott have their backs turned to us, so it's safe to look up. He just might turn around. No. Then Shaylene notices something good and taps her brother's shoulder. Want to share a chocolate mousse pie with me? Looks tempting. I'll pay for it if you let me promote you during Q&A. When they're on the air, and after Santana and Warrington introduce themselves, Warrington announces, it is shaping up to be one of the biggest games in the preseason when 2 hometown teams face off against each other. We call this the Crystal Isle Civil War. Everyone laughs, and Shaylene can see the grin he's wearing. He will say something that's great public relations for local sports. But what makes this game, maybe even the season, special is that the generals of both teams are related to each other, Warrington continues. In fact, they're cousins. And it's no secret that the quarterback of one of the teams, is the son of the owner of the other team. Welcome Neil Jameston of the Tsunami and Scott Jameston of the Warriors. Everyone except Shaylene applauds. He throws the first question to Neil. So, Neil Jameston, not only are you drafted straight from university, but according to my notes, you are the son of a crime show host, Charles Jameston, and he expected you and your younger brother, who still plays college ball, to become cops. What made you decide to play football? Neil smiles and answers. My mom's influences. When my older brother Trace joined the Crystal Isle police force, I remember Mom telling Dad at his graduation, 1 is enough. Knowing that we were all the active, athletic types, she encouraged Kevin and me to pick a sport and make that our career. He mentioned some things about his father's friendship with Counselor Goldsmith, and Shaylene groaned silently. He just may bring up the election. But he doesn't, as Greg silently tells her. What was it like for you two growing up, Santana asks. Were you close in any way, and did you always compete with each other? Oh, as children, all us Jameston boys would get together every weekend, almost every Saturday, Scott answers. This was long before Uncle Charles started working on Paradise Lost. But whenever our father's work kept them away, we'd go with our mothers. We would get together in my parents' big backyard, or, if our moms really wanted us out of the house, we would walk a long way to a playing field at some park, and Trace, Neil, and Kevin would square off against Pat and me in endless games of touch football. Depending on whose house we were at, we would gather up as many of our friends as we could so we could form teams. Scott and I were pretty competitive against each other, Neil adds. It was cousins versus cousins, as that was the way Patrick liked it. What was it like for you going to school? Warrington asked. Did you attend the same school? Or did you also find yourselves rivals during your middle and high school years too? Neil and I did play on teams that brutally rivaled each other, but our parents insisted that we keep that rivalry on the high school field, Scott laughs. But really, Neil is actually like the little brother I always wanted, since he's about a couple of years younger than I am. So every competition we had, we kept it friendly. It wouldn't last too long in high school, as Neil was a sophomore when I was a senior. Shaylene finds this boring, and looks up at the screens during the interview. A Major League Baseball game is on a screen directly above her. She decides it's a less violent sport, so she has something to distract herself. Her chocolate mousse pie is another distraction. She delights in the chocolatey goodness, the whipped topping, the chocolate drizzle of the syrup. She loses herself in a beautiful, romantic fantasy, quietly making love to a hero as she eats. When she finishes, she quickly helps herself to another slice. She doesn't see if Greg notices her. She thinks he's focused on the interview and his Jameston cousins. But Greg is eager to get to his proposal. Wanting to announce this on air, so he has to wait until the show comes back from commercial break. Minutes later, when they're back on the air, Santana says, "Okay, I'm sure some of us at the Tribal Fire Sports Bar and Grill have some questions for Neil or Scott, so let's throw it out to the audience." Greg shoots his hand up and smiles earnestly at both cousins. "Well, to begin with," he says, I am the son of Councillor Lawrence Goldsmith, who was put in a bid to run for mayor. And, as Neil established, his father and mine are very good friends." Neil turns and smiles at Greg, then notices Shaylene with him and becomes smitten. Her eyes are still fixed on the television. "Last weekend, both Neil and Scott's parents visited my parents after dinner, and it was proposed that both these gentlemen be fixed up to date by a younger sister." Shaylene suddenly turns to Greg, horrified. She doesn't notice Neil and Scott, but looks around at the crowd, all of them staring at her, wondering if she'll go for it. She glares at her brother, now understanding why he brought her here. "Mr. Goldsmith, I don't think it's very relevant here, and you're embarrassing your sister," Warrington says. "Nonsense! I think this would be great public relations, not only for the city of Crystal Isle, but also for the Warriors and Tsunami," Greg insists. A crew member moves the microphone closer to Shaylene, and she is unnerved to see it obstructing the television. She looks over at Neil and Scott, who are now staring at how beautiful she looks. Neil looks smitten with her, as if he wants another chance. "Ah, I can see that Neil and Scott are interested," Greg continues, "and seeing that both the city's police and fire departments are endorsing my father in his campaign, I'm confident that he will be our city's next mayor. If one of our hometown's greatest quarterbacks is married to the mayor's daughter, not only will this set up a wave of publicity, but my sister will be one half of Crystal Isle royalty. Now then, stand up, Shaylene, and show yourself." Shaylene rises slowly, looking as if she wants to kill him in front of everyone, that last remark fresh in her mind. "Thank you, Michael Henchard," she says through gritted teeth. "Why don't you just put me up for sale to all the men here, not just to Jamestons?" Santana looks at Neil, then back at Shaylene. "Neil, does Miss Goldsmith look familiar to you?" "I knew her when she was in high school," Neil says. We both went to Hacienda Tribe High School. All the guys wanted to date her, even the science geeks." "Yeah, but I was never interested in him," Shaylene says. "I never dated any of the high school athletes because I was afraid they'd all go professional. Only those who were serious about becoming police officers, like my father originally wanted with me." "And you never wanted to date a pro athlete because?" Santana prompts. Because I never wanted to be famous, Shaylene answers. If there's one thing that's to be said about me, it's that I'm not like other daughters of career politicians. All of them dream of becoming famous actresses, singers, and models. So do those who attach themselves to pro athletes, especially quarterbacks and hockey captains. Or they're working on being famous. Me? I just want the simple kind of life when I marry. Wife, mother, maybe even working mother. It's the main reason why I never became a sorority sister, nor was I interested in cheerleading. Neil reaches out to take her hand. Shaylene, this is more than just a marriage to a pro athlete, he says. If you and I were to marry one day, it would solidify a friendship that our fathers held when we were children, bringing them closer and making them into family. Friends can become family if it's in their destiny. It's as if we were promised to each other long ago. And I promise I will not change you into something you don't want to be. Scott promises too. She looks over at Scott to see him nodding sincerely. He also reaches his hand out to her, hoping she will take it. She then remembers the promise she made to her parents, and what she said to Fred Jameston, that she would give both these young men a chance. Oh, all right. Just so long as you treat me as like a lady and act like a gentleman. The cousins take turns kissing her hand. Neil says to her, my darling, you will not be disappointed. We may share a love for football, but we promise that our love for you will be just as strong. Shaylene still feels skeptical, but the applause of everyone around her tells her that everyone approves. She tries to smile, wondering what marriage to a quarterback will be like. She also wonders if she will be able to keep a low profile as a result of it. She looks around at the crowd, then back to Neil and Scott, thinking, fame can't possibly hurt me, can it? And that's the Chapter 4 reading of Lovers in a Dangerous Time. The next and final reading can be found all the way into Chapter 18. See you then!